On this episode of the John 1911 podcast, the Air Force surpluses its last revolvers. CMP clamps down on 1911 sales. Did a Chinese spy target Mar-a-Lago? And an African poacher gets eaten by everything. Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Marky and Freeze, and this is episode 129 of the John 1911 podcast. How's it going, Freeze?
Pretty good. I'm actually, I got an early start today. I'm finally cleaning up yard waste.
That's good. It's been a rough winter. I bet your yard is teared up.
Okay, about a month and a half ago, when everything was cold as shit and frozen, I had like 4 trees down that I went and cut up, but I needed to haul the brush away. Well, I got like 75% of that brush hauled away because it's been so damn wet. If I get my tractor out there, I just tear up everything. Well, as I was hauling away some brush this morning, I noticed 3 other trees that have since fallen that I got to get the saw out and cut up. It's like, gee. And I mean, it's not a couple whole trees and then a couple like branches, and it's a freaking mess.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically kind of a commentary on how it's been, 2018, 2019, crazy wet. So, weather.
Well, that's what happens, when you have acreage.
I'm leaving a silent space in there so I can cut that out.
Okay.
Okay. So, hey, I'm just checking the news real quick before we get into all the fun stuff. There's a story on Fox News this morning. American Airlines. Have you ever had a bad day at work? American Airlines flight attendant, quote, mortified after spilling tray of drinks on CEO.
Oh, that's a bad day.
Oh my God. Sprayed her company's full of drinks on her flight recently, like an entire tray. So
that's awesome.
That happens. We've all had bad days at work. Speaking of bad
every day's a bad day at work.
Speaking of bad days at work, did you hear about the Chinese woman that tried to, I guess she successfully broke into Mar-a-Lago, then got caught? Did you hear about this?
I think I did hear a blurb.
So it was a blurb. They kept it quiet for a day or two, and then it blurbed out, and I immediately keyed in on it. I was like, oh man, what's this? So this woman, Chinese national, she showed up at Mar-a-Lago, and she bluffed her way through some Secret Service checkpoint and told them that she was there to use the pool. And someone that worked at Mar-a-Lago, I guess they had the same surname as a member, so they mistakenly assumed it was like, I don't know the name, like Mrs. Lang's child or something. Like, it's a Chinese name, so. And there's a lot of real common names. I'm not being racist. I'm just being honest. So they were like, that's Mrs. Lang. And they had the same last name or something. So she makes it past the first thing. And then she's inside the resort, and she's not in the secured areas. And Trump was in Florida, but he was at golfing somewhere. He wasn't at Mar-a-Lago at that moment. And I guess then she ran into somebody else, and they challenged her. And she said that she was there for like some UN meeting or something, and like her story kept changing, and somebody got suspicious, and they bagged her up, and she had on her person, I think she had 2 passports, she had a hard drive, a couple of memory sticks, some SIM cards, and she might have had a couple cell phones on her, and apparently so the Secret Service, they took her memory sticks, and they're analyzing them. There's a computer they had isolated. They plugged one of these memory sticks into a computer, and it immediately started loading some kind of malware onto the computer in a way that they'd never seen before. So they stopped it. Yeah. So then they went to her hotel room. They went to her hotel room, and they found $8,000 in cash. She had a bunch of other electronics, like multiple computers, and then she even had a device that detected that detects surreptitious audio-visual camera equipment through radio frequencies. It was like, this looks bizarre. And she's not a U.S. You sure she doesn't work for Alex Jones? What did you ask?
I said, you sure she isn't Russian?
Well, apparently she hopped on a flight from China and flew here and was claiming that she had paid money to this man who maybe is in Hong Kong to, like, I don't know, to like attend some meet and greet. Like, you could meet, like, the question here is whether she's using this service as a cover, or whether the Ministry of State Security, which is the MSS, which is the Chinese, like, Uber intelligence company, detected this scam and then tried to exploit it. But this scam looks like there's some dude out there in, like, you know, maybe Hong Kong, who's taking money from people and saying, like, pay me $8,000. I will arrange a trip to Mar-a-Lago and you can meet members of the Trump family. And that might be a real scam. Like, that's a scam. Yeah. And that might be a real scam. And then maybe the MSS might have taken advantage of this. It's bizarre. This woman, they are not, I mean, as far as we can tell right now, they are not letting her shit go. She will not, charges will not be, she cannot call Chicago and get the justice.
She is not going to pull a Jesse Smollett, huh?
No, She is probably, unless they're able to determine this is some crazy story, she'll probably have to be, she could be sent, she'll probably end up being convicted and sentenced. And then maybe at some point, if we ever do an exchange with the Chinese for intelligence assets, maybe we would do an exchange like in a third country, like you used to do with Russia. But the thing is, the problem with the Chinese, whenever they arrest intelligence assets, they just kill them. I don't think they have anybody to exchange. You know, so it's a hell of an interesting story, and it has not gotten a lot of coverage. And there was another one. They had busted some Chinese guy. They convicted him. He had shown up at a naval base in I think it was in Florida, and he was taking pictures of the naval base. He had gone into some area that was restricted so he could get eyes on the facility, and was shooting photographs, and they busted him, and they convicted him. And the thing is, they think the theory is maybe they don't know if the Chinese are paying more attention to Florida because Trump is now down there. That's the Winter White House location. That's a phrase. Or, you know, maybe they've always been down there because of Central Command and SOCOM, and, you know, and, like, there's a lot of military in Florida.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Florida's.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just a really interesting story that I've been following that nobody else seems to care about. But I was like, man, this is crazy interesting. You know,
it is interesting.
They keep finding more stuff about her, and it's like, that's interesting too. So, there was another story. I was worried about it yesterday. The Japanese lost an F-35.
Really?
Yeah, it disappeared, and they're like, it went out to go flying. I don't think they've had the F-35 that long, and it went out to go flying, and they lost track of it, and it's like, oh no.
Uh-oh.
Oh no. They're like, they didn't know where it was. I mean, they weren't saying publicly. They may have known, but I'm like, oh man, I hope this guy didn't fly west, northwest, and just defect or something. You know, because we used to get the Russian guys to do that. You know, we would occasionally pay some guy off, and he'd fly a plane into the west. And I'll tell you what, if I was the Chinese, I would pay big money for somebody.
Oh, yeah.
I tell you what, I didn't think about this. If I was the Chinese government, if I could figure out a way to approach an American pilot or a Western pilot, I'd be like, I will pay you $100 billion to fly an F-35 into Hunan Island, and we will pay. And here's the thing, and if I was China, I would fucking pay it. I'd be like, this dude gets paid, and he gets to live in Macau, or he lives in China, and he gets to live the free life he wants to live. Because I would get big money for that fucking plane.
The problem is, after they had the plane, before you got the money, they'd end up just killing you.
Possibly. Well, but you know what? The thing. Yeah, well, the argument is that you don't do that because then if you can do one, then you make it appealing for the others. Like if you make it known that you can't trust us to even pay off, pay off our scams, then, then it'd be harder to scam in the future. So, but apparently they have found the craft. They haven't found the pilot, but the plane did crash. They've recovered it. They've located it. So I don't know where it's at, but so he didn't defect. So I feel bad for I feel bad for the pilot, but part of me's like, whew.
Well, I mean, you feel bad for the pilot, but at least at least it was recovered and not by the Chinese.
Yeah. So absolutely. So
I mean, shit.
I want to talk about CMP for a minute. Did you hear this one? It caused a little drama on the internet, and I was curious if you'd even heard it because I know you've been real busy. How many guys have you known who had qualified for CMP rifles, would get their allotment every year, and turn around and sell them for profit?
Oh God! In the 80s, everyone I knew.
It was a cottage industry.
Oh yeah, I mean, look. Of course, in the 80s, when you could get an M1 Garand from the CMP for literally $100, you had to qualify. You had to shoot a match. I mean, it's not like it is today, but you had to shoot a match, an NRA match, qualify. But it was $100, and I knew a ton of guys that got, actually myself included. Really, I mean, I didn't do it to turn a profit, but I bought 2 Grands from the CMP years and years ago, and I've sold both of them, and I did turn a profit on them, but I didn't do it to turn a profit. It's just one of those deals where, you buy a gun, a few years later, you sell it, whatnot, Yeah,
trying to get into something else, trade, collector activity.
Yeah, actually, I don't have any M1 Grands because, frankly, I don't really care for the M1 Garand. I don't know. They never did anything for me, I mean, I shot them. I like them. They're good shooting rifles, but it's kind of like, it's kind of like 5 years ago, we had a conversation about ARs, and I told you I got rid of all my ARs because they just bored the hell out of me.
Look at you now.
Kind of the same. Well, yeah, I know. Now that I'm I'm back into them, so who knows? 2 years from now, I could be back into Grands.
Yeah. I had a M1D. I had a sniper rifle, but it was
shit.
It was a rat trap.
That was a pile of shit.
Rat gun was a rat trap. And, now it might be worth having, but the thing is, if I get a Garand again, we don't have any Grands even in the armory. I'd probably try to pick up a
308.
Yeah, a 308. Because we have, I'd rather have a 308.
I mean, honestly, if I was going to get back into a Garand, I agree with you. I would be more interested in the 7.62 than the 30-06.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong. It's not that I don't like 30-06. I like 30-06, but how many 30-06 guns do we have in the armory?
0.
Exactly. How many 7.62 guns do we have in the armory?
I can't count.
Exactly. So if I'm going to get into a Garand, it just makes sense.
It does, and that's always the thing. That was my issue with the Grands back in the day. Is 30-06 for me. Well, the D was a rat trap, and then 30-06 was always a harder caliber for me to support. But
with that being said, if a Garand in 30-06 came along at the right price, I wouldn't hesitate. But if I'm going to actually actively look for an M1 Garand, I've got to go with the 7.62 Garand just because it makes sense to us.
Mm-hmm. I occasionally look at them on Gunbroker and some of the other auction sites, and I'm always looking for. I tend to look for a 7.62. Do you remember the time I found well, they're all technically 7.62. The 308. Do you remember the time I found a M1D 308 somebody put together?
Yeah, that was what, about
a year ago?
3 years?
Was it 3? No, man, time flies.
I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, but I do remember that.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I kind of look back, wish I'd bought that just for the cool factor.
Well, it'd be kind of nice to add it into the sniper collection.
Yeah,
even though it's but still.
Yeah, because the nice thing about at least the D's is the mounting for the scope is in the barrel, like in the barrel shank part of the barrel or something. Like it's in the. So basically you put the barrel in, and as long as there's clearance, and you can cut the clearance, I think, in the receiver or in the wood, if I remember. But you can just screw that scope into it, that mount. Well, here's the thing: you can take a scoped M1D rifle, you pull that scope off of it. You just have a normal gun, which is pretty handy in itself. And having a 7.62 would be pretty interesting. So I have it floating in my mind, but if we ran across a totally assed up and destroyed Grand, I would be willing to maybe rebuild the entire thing as a faux D in 308.
But here's the problem. They're so freaking collectible. Even a destroyed one, you can get more in parts than no one's going to get rid of them on the cheap. But look, here's what I like about the 7.62 Grand. It kind of fits into our motif. We've got a 308 Enfield. We've got a 308 Maz 36. We've got a 308 K98 Mauser. I kind of like, having the old, the old World War II milsurps converted to 308 or 7.62 by whatever. So, I mean, it kind of fits into our motif. I like that whole. I like the whole, I kind of like just going down that path.
I guess I have to give this explanation to the listener just to understand why I didn't buy the 7.62 D rifle and why I've never bought a 7.62 by 51 or 308 Grand.
Yeah.
Is for a long time I just didn't believe they were reliable. And what happened was this is a few years ago. I was at Camp Perry when Camp Perry was still worth going to. I was at Camp Perry. We were up there, a bunch of us, and I was in line to get some food. And there were these two. I've told this before in the past. There were these two. I mean, to me they were kids. Like I think they might have even been minors. One may have been 16 or 17. There were these two boys, and they were Asian American. And they were in line directly behind me, and they had Garands slung over their shoulders to get food. They were up there. They were up there competing up there for the matches. And I just casually was talking to them, and it was so neat to see, like, kids. And then it was Japanese American kids. I think they were Japanese, but they were Asian American kids with M1 Grands at Camp Perry. I just was like, I was so blown away by the entire experience, and they were so knowledgeable and so enthusiastic. And so when in the course of talking to them, somehow I was able to figure out that they were 308 guns. And I was like, oh man, do those work? Are those reliable? And they were like, absolutely. You just talked about changing the gas plug and whatever. They had some little real quick thing you do with it. They're like, it runs great. That's all I shoot. And I was like, God damn, I got to get me one of them. Like if these kids are running these guns, all of a sudden I was like, I need to get a 308 Grand. And so ever since then, I've been kind of on the hunt.
Well, hey, I'm all for it. By
the way, before I've kind of forgot that I kind of walked on the lead here. The reason I brought up CMP, they're coming out with the 1911s, right?
Oh God,
oh God. Well, they have now instituted a policy. I don't know how they're going to enforce it, but they've instituted a policy that says if you buy a 1911, you can't sell it. And what they're really trying to do is they don't want you to get these handguns for the purpose of flipping them. And I think what they're really telling you is if we see a bunch of these guns for sale and we know the serial numbers of the people we sold them to, and we know it's Bob Smith that's been buying guns and flipping these guns, we're going to ban his ass from the program.
Well, that's actually not a new policy. Cracker Jack, the donkey, was bought from the military, bought from the government. He's government surplus. And when he was bought, and he was bought second owner here, not the first owner. The original owner, when he bought him, had to sign paperwork that he would not sell the donkey for at least 2 years. And what that's for is so you don't buy a bunch of these surplus donkeys on the cheap and turn them into fucking dog food.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, this is not an uncommon practice for the government to implement. But
but for CMP, it was just kind of interesting. Because they've had, I think what caused it is they've had such an interest. Like they had, I don't know, like let's say it was 10,000 guns, and they had like 19,000 or 20,000 applicants.
I'll tell you what, I have seen pictures of some of these CMP 1911s that have come out, and I'll be honest with you, they're not pretty.
Oh no,
they are not pretty. I mean. And for the price they're paying, oh man, there ain't no way. And honestly, the condition of the ones I've seen, I don't understand how anyone could buy one from the CMP and turn a profit on them. I really don't.
You know how this typically goes, though. We've seen this forever. I'm not paying that. That's too much money. That's whatever. 10 years from now, people be like, oh, man, I could have bought those from CMP for that price.
Yeah. I remember buying, 9130s for $69.99 from Century. Ooh, I know. Yeah, exactly.
The thing is, once these guns dry up, they'll become more valuable. So, it's not that I'm big on the CMP thing, but I just thought that was kind of an interesting story that they'd come out with. And
no, I mean, it is interesting, and on one hand, I'm kind of glad they're doing that.
Yeah, because they've got I think they had 10,000, like the first tranche, like they're coming in waves of 10,000, and the first wave, they had 19,000 applicants, and so they're double already. And the thing is too, I guess they have to make a decision. It might even be in their financial interests because, they would rather fill the 10,000 and have a bunch of people still hungry to pay for the other 10, because another tranche of 10,000 is going to come. And those people who have spent uber money on the private market are not going to be inclined to buy out of the second 10,000 because those people are kind of out of the market. And so it's like, wait a minute, all these people are CMP sells these guns so they can pay for themselves. And it's like, these people are making money at the expense of our customer base that we need to get money from. And I can see the other side of the argument where they're basically like, they're like, look, you're fucking killing us here. So.
I see it. I definitely see it. But hey, let's change tactics, change directions here.
Okay.
I saw, and I'm not going to mention who it was from on the podcast. We can talk in private later. But you know how, you're kind of swinging towards the whole 300 blackout thing. And I know we've trashed 300 blackout over the past couple of years. But I saw it
swinging towards it. But go ahead.
You're less, let's just say you're less anti 300 blackout than you were a year ago.
You know what? My position's still the same because a year ago I even said I don't need a 300 blackout in the 30-round mag AR to shoot somebody across the room, but 300 blackout in the bolt action rifle, uber suppressed for an application, I think that's interesting.
Check this out. I found someone who is selling an AR upper. It's just an upper. and it's under $400, side charging handle with an adjustable gas block in 300 blackout.
See, that doesn't interest me.
Oh, a side charging handle with an adjustable gas block for a suppressed 300 blackout? That doesn't interest you?
Nope.
Oh, man. I thought you'd be interested in that. Oh, well, my bad.
I mean, you're interested in it because you want the Armory to buy it.
No, actually, the truth is, I'm not interested in it. I'm not.
Officer Mike is real big into the 300 blackout. Look, here's my.
Officer Mike's a douche.
Stop.
I'm joking. He's not. But if he's interested in 300 blackout, he's a douche. No, seriously. All joking aside. Look, 300 blackout, as we've stated time and time again, has its purposes, but I don't see any reason for me to jump into 300 blackout when I have multiple platforms that'll do the same thing. And look, I'm not room clearing. I'm not a door kicker. I don't kick in doors and clear rooms.
Here's my problem. But let's talk about the AR upper that you just mentioned. And here's my problem with that gun. Okay, side charging handle, because you can, okay. My uses for 300 blackout would be for uber suppressed to whack some kind of animal right next to the PETA headquarters. You know what I mean? Like, let me set up an extreme example to prove a point. Like, I'm in the woods, PETA headquarters is right there. I need to do a deprivation clear on something, and I don't want PETA to know. Well, if I have
you don't want PETA to like red paint on you or anything.
Yeah, PETA doesn't like it when the deer eat their landscaping, but they don't want to they complain about the deer eating their landscaping, but they don't want to know how the deer end up just going away. So somebody has to clear the woods next to the PETA headquarters, and if I have a choice between a bolt action 300 blackout or an AR and 300 blackout, I'm going to take the bolt action because here's the thing. That action is going to make noise. It's going to cycle. And if you're going to take the AR and you're going to turn the gas all the way down, what the fuck's the point? You know what I mean? It's like, I'd rather have it all in a bolt gun. Because if you actually suppress, truly make it 100%, as quiet as you can, around, you still have to deal with the action going clunk clunk, and that's pretty loud.
Plus, as soon as that action opens, all those expelled gases make a noise as well. So
the hammer makes a noise. The action cycling makes a noise, opening and closing. It's just like, my uses for 300 blackout would never be in an AR. And the thing is, I'm not going to say who these people are, but when 300 blackout first came out, and it's like, ooh, it's uber quiet and it's this and the ninjas and cool and all that, and all these guys had all this money and they could buy whatever they wanted to try out for work. And these guys are trying to shoot 300 blackout at 400 yards, and this thing is flying like a mortar shell, and it's like. Okay, you're so close. The 300 blackout does not fly that well, especially subsonic. And it's just like, then in an AR, it's like, any caliber that I can run uber suppress in a bolt action gun is pretty interesting. But guess what? A subsonic 300 Win Mag or subsonic 308 in that same bolt action gun is going to achieve the same result.
Yeah.
And they make those.
Yeah. So basically, that just revolves us around to our earlier conversation of the 44 mag bolt action dealio.
Yeah, but we can't talk about that right now. So,
but look, okay. So what you're saying is, if there was a side charging AR upper with an adjustable gas block in 350 Legend, you might be interested in it.
No, that's you. You're interested in it, but I'm not.
That's true. I am interested in 350 Legend, and actually,
I'm interested in 350 Legend in a Blazer or a bolt action. I don't need it in an AR.
I mean, you can buy it in a bolt action. I mean, they make them.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's one of those things. It's like, well, that's pretty interesting. But it's like,
okay. So I'm sorry I even mentioned the
and the 350 Legend is a straight wall that'll be legal in states where 300 blackout's got taper to it, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It sure as hell does.
Yeah. So then, like, there you go. I mean, that's why 350 Legend wins.
Well, there's two reasons why 350 Legend wins. That's one. That's the number one reason. But the number two reason is it's $10 for a box of ammo.
I am curious what's going to happen with 300 Blackout. And see, the kids today don't want to believe 300 Blackout can possibly start to fall out of favor. But see, dude, I mean, I've seen 40 Smith & Wesson fall out of favor. I've seen and here's the thing,
10 millimeters falling out of favor. It doesn't mean
10 millimeters. It fell so far out of favor, it's starting to come back a little bit because it's now like, ooh, everything old is new again. 6.5 Creedmoor is falling out of favor, and I warned people on this. Not that I think 6.5 Creedmoor is a great caliber.
Oh, by the way, speaking of 6.5 Creedmoor, actually it has nothing to do with 6.5 Creedmoor, but it reminded me of it. Your April Fool's meme of 7.4. Dude, I literally spit coffee across my desk when I saw that. It was just like, that is amazing.
That came from I think that came from one of the, we didn't make that. That came from one of the, I think the accuracy forum, or like one of the hand loader, bench rest, Uber high-end forums.
I don't even care where it came from. It was so damn funny.
So let me explain the meme to people that don't know what it is. So, okay. So you got NATO is 7.62 by 51. So 7.62 caliber width, and then the overall length of the cartridge is 51 millimeters. So 7.62 by 51. Okay. So you'll hear people sometimes use 308 and 7.62 interchangeably. And I know there's some differences. It's a brass thickness issue, which can cause some different.
I actually, earlier in this podcast, used them interchangeably when we were talking about the Rams.
Yes. So there's a 7.62 308. So for April Fools, what somebody did is they created a meme, and they came up with a new caliber called 7.6 Creedmoor. And it's the new, because everything Creedmoor is cool now. Like all the new calibers that come out, everything if you are wildcatting around right now and you're listening to this, you're like, man, I want to come out with a new 25 caliber or a new whatever, or a new handgun, anything, call it fucking Creedmoor, because that's what they're all doing. And like 8.6 now, like, Q is working on a subsonic 338. They're calling it 8.6 Creedmoor. So everybody's doing that. So this guy, he came up with 7.6 Creedmoor, and then he said, the new whatever hot shit Creedmoor caliber works with all existing 308 chamber caliber guns. It's going to be great. You guys are going to love this. And it's like, there's people that saw that and actually didn't even, they were like, oh man, I'm going to get me some 7.6 Creedmoor. And it's like,
Creedmoor, man, that's the shit.
That's the shit. It's like, oh my God.
I have to drop an image of the meme into the item description.
You know what? I will, because I'll put it in there, because it's on the Facebook page, but I'll put it in there. But that was pretty funny.
No, that was very funny. It's just an example of how the internet gun community gets wrapped up in shit, and actually that kind of leads into the whole firing pin thing we were talking about. The internet, I mean, we've had the. I'm not going to get into details on the display.
No, we can talk about that. We can talk about that now. I haven't released the video yet because it just happened yesterday, but I broke a firing pin on the gun again. Again. Because I actually shoot my shit. But
in all fairness, you shouldn't break a firing pin every 30 rounds.
Yeah. The thing is, I haven't shot that much this year because I've been building a gun range. So
Yeah.
there's an issue here. I broke a firing pin on the Blaser Tactical 2 again, and we're still researching it. We haven't even. The thing is, as of this recording, we haven't even reached out to Blaser USA yet to inform them. So you and I have discussed off pod some theories. We've also discussed with our PhD buddy and some ideas, and we have some options that we may even up to and including making our own firing pin. We'll see.
Yes.
We'll have to price that, but we think there might be a solution, an engineering solution to the issue, but we would have to design a new firing pin. So, which is, practically speaking, not good, not a smart way to spend money, but the Armory doesn't spend money smart. There's nothing about the Armory smart wise because we buy all these collectible guns, so that's just so. But the home gamer at home, the conversation had gone into some people in the firearms community don't understand metallurgy and engineering versus like some more generalized terms. Like if somebody buys an upgrade to a part, they upgrade something, they will say it's better, which is great. And it's all about the application, but it's very easy for somebody to slip into better being stronger. And it's like, you got to be careful because it's depending on what you're trying to do. And the example that was given was, some people think stainless steel firing pins are stronger, or some people think stainless steel is stronger. And they upgrade to stainless steel firing pins in certain guns. And what is stainless steel is actually softer, but it's less likely to fracture. So, but on a firing pin, that application and the stresses it's under, it's probably more appropriate. But then you'll have people in the firearms community, revolver guys, who will fully know that if you take a high round count stainless steel revolver, like a Magnum revolver, and compare it to a high round count blued gun, and you shoot like crazy amounts of ammo through them, that stainless steel frame will stretch. So do those guys, they'll say that stainless steel is weaker, but then it's also interesting, those same guys on another forum may say stainless steel is stronger. And they're mixing their pleasures because it's about the application and the engineering of what you're trying to do in the forces. Like, for example, another example that came up was barrels. People want barrels that don't wear out, which is fine. Because the more, it's super strong metal, super hard steel, or super hard whatever, super strong, and the throat doesn't wear, and this, and I can get all these rounds out of it. But if you make a barrel if it's too hard, there's a give and a take. The harder you make it, the more brittle it can be. And when the barrel may hold up to 100,000 bullets going down the tube, but the thing is, your chamber will fracture under the explosion of the round going off in the chamber. So you have to play one off on the other, and sometimes you'll use a softer metal that's more pliable, and then you'll coat it or surface treat it to try to make the surface harder so the wear is down, but then underneath structurally the metal will hold, the metal will hold under the pressure of a round going off. So the argument was about being specific in terminology and the engineering of stuff. There are a lot of people, it's easy to get sloppy on it because upgrading is good, more, better, good, better, stronger. It's like, whoa, don't use the word stronger. It depends on what you're trying to do. So, do you have one of those big ass planes flying over your house right now? One of those A330s or whatever? Is that like the big giant double decker one?
Yeah, it's a big freaking Airbus.
I can hear it. I don't know if the listener can hear it.
Those things are so freaking loud.
Hey,
but I am right over a runway flight path. So
yes, you are
right under. Yeah, so.
Hey, I this morning I don't know if you've seen any news because I didn't really get a chance to see it. Is the DOJ supposedly going to do an investigation as to how the Russian collusion investigation began? Like who started that? Is that true? Have you seen any of this?
You know, I haven't heard. Look, they're not. They're just not. Because they don't want to know the answer to that question.
Mm-hmm.
You know it, I know it, and everyone else fucking knows it too. And I mean, the news medias might report, oh, well, the DOJ is going to do that. No, they're fucking not, because no one really wants to know the answer to because the truth is, everyone knows what the answer is, just like everyone knew there was no collusion, but they don't like the answer. So, look, the DOJ is not going to do shit.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think they're going to. I think it's probably like a dog and pony show. We're going to investigate this so we can know what happened, and was this really nefarious? But I'm like, is Washington ever going to nuke itself? And it's like, no, it's not. And the proof is in Lois Lerner. Whatever happened to Lois Lerner at the IRS? Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Exactly.
No, I think she even got her pension. Nothing.
Oh, shit, yeah, nothing. I mean, look, it's all bullshit,
Did you hear about the? Did you hear about the? You remember during the Kavanaugh hearings, somebody had released all of this personal contact information, all these Republican senators. You remember that? Like for like a hot minute, it was like. Like the personal contact and cell phone information of like Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell.
Oh, yeah, I do recall that.
Well, they actually got a guy to plead guilty. They got a guy to plead guilty to that. It was late last week or maybe on Monday this week. So this is interesting, dude. This guy, he's this is off the top of my head. I don't have it in front of me. He's a Democrat staffer dude. So, and most of the time he volunteers, but he's worked for I think he worked for Barbara Boxer back when she was in the Senate. I think he worked for Maxine Waters. He's worked for this one woman. So what this guy was doing is he had put keyloggers on these computers, and this one, I think I remember who this woman is. She's not a well-known congresswoman, Democrat. And basically, he had taken over the computers in her office. And he had everybody's passwords. And so what he would do is he went in there and he downloaded like gigabytes of information in these systems that are common to all the congressional or all the congressional houses. So he had a lot of information. And then he was eventually fired from this office for, doing shit that was not kosher on the computers. He ended up getting a job in somebody else's office on the Hill. And eventually he was, I don't know if he was frog marched out of the building, but after he was gone, he would sneak back in and like basically break into these offices and get back onto these computers and steal shit. And he's the one that was releasing all this information, and they brought him up on like 5 federal charges, and he pled guilty to them. They had him cold. And it's like, it's a huge scandal. And, I'm telling that story to kind of say this. Like, there's a reason why the White House and the Pentagon, like why they have things like the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence and the House Select Committee on Defense. Because what they do is they have like a handful of people that have super high security clearances, and they go into SCIF areas in Congress, and they don't have the shit in their offices or on their computers, because if the Congress is known as a hotbed not only of leaks but of espionage. The literally Capitol Hill, the physical location, you can't keep shit secret up there. And this is an example of it. Yeah. Just it's partisan, not national security, but it's the same issue. And it's like, it's just like a little blurb and poof, it's gone. No, nothing to see here. Lois Lerner, nothing to see here. FBI, we're going to spy on American citizens for political gain. Nothing to see here. Yeah. It's terrible.
No, I mean, I agree with you. It is. But, getting back to what we were saying, they can sit there and, the DOJ is going to do. No, they're not. No,
they're not.
No, they're not. No, Hillary's not going to jail. Barack Obama's not going to jail, even though you can see 100 fucking memes a day on Facebook about, Barack Obama holding a fucking mugshot placard in front of him. It's not going to freaking happen. Just stop.
Well, but I mean, like the real question is, does Susan Rice go to jail? And the answer is, if Lois Lerner doesn't go to jail, you ain't touching Susan Rice.
No.
I think she got a job at the, was it the Atlantic Council? And then she went to Brookings. So she's got, I think, 2 seats. She's making money. Susan Rice is doing pretty good right now. And you also notice when some of this was first coming out about Trump and collusion, she was on TV talking, and then you'll notice she just disappeared because she's real close to the bad decisions, and she's been real quiet. She's been real quiet. Susan Rice, if somebody's got their hand in the cookie jar, she's one of them. Because she was a national security advisor. And she's got the Benghazi bullshit on her hanging over her.
Oh, yeah, she does. But you know what? It doesn't matter. She's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, she is.
She's fine.
Look,
yeah, she's.
I swore up and down Eric Holder was going to prison. And
I told you there's no way Eric Holder's going to prison.
And you told me there's no way. And that turned out to be true. Look, none of these people are ever going to jail.
Nope.
And you know what? They're all going to retire. They're all going to go into cushy jobs, and they're all going to have their millions of fucking dollars. And they're all going to be fine. And that's just the way it is.
Speaking of millions of dollars, did you hear Bernie Sanders admitted that he's a millionaire?
No, did he actually admit it? Not that, again, it's just like the Russian collusion. Everyone knows Bernie Sanders is a fucking millionaire. Everyone knows it. But he wants to be the common man who doesn't make money in Congress. What the fuck ever, Bernie?
Well, that's interesting is the thing is well, you know what? It's like Susan Rice. Like, I remember it was a couple years ago or maybe 18 months ago. Dr. Susan Rice. She's a doctor and national security advisor. She was a counselor to the president. She worked on Obama's
ambassador. She was a U.S. ambassador to the United Nations at one point.
That's right. Because they tried to make her Secretary of State, but then the Benghazi thing happened and they couldn't give it to her for political reasons. So they brought her in as national security advisor. They had to bring her in as a non-confirmable. Maybe it was the other way, but they had to bring her in as a non-confirmable position because there's no way she'd pass confirmation. But anyway, she's worth $70 million. And that's
Is she really?
Wow. And it's like, what the fuck? And it's like, what, and then like, okay, I hate to be sexist, but you got to ask this question. It's like, what does her husband do? And it's like, I can't even remember what it was. I think her husband might be white, but
her husband's Canadian.
Is he Canadian?
Yeah, he's Canadian.
But anyway, but hold on. Let me finish. Here's the point. She's worked in government and academia her whole life. Mm-hmm. And it's like, unless she's married this really successful dude, you're like, or you'd be a lesbian, I don't care. But, married, unless you have a partner that's made a lot of money, where's this money coming from? Well, you look at like Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is worse. Susan Rice, at the very least, I think she might have taught at Stanford. I know Condoleezza Rice is big out there at Stanford, but I think Susan Rice was at Harvard. She's worked as a college professor. She's held some pretty high-level positions. She's got time on the Atlantic Council. She's with Brookings, I believe, now. These are prestigious positions. She can get on boards. These people can make some jack. A couple $100,000 per position. They can scrape up some money. But still, $500,000 a year in cheese, or even getting to $1 million a year in money. How $70 million that's 70 years of income. Where's 70 million coming from? So then you take it, you look at old Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, like, he's never had a job.
No.
Like,
no.
literally, dude has never had a job. The first time he ever drew a paycheck in his life, I think he was in his late 30s or early 40s, and he got elected to like city council in some little town. You know, I mean, and that's the first time he ever held a paycheck. And then, he's, basically had elected office, and, he's worth, I don't know how much he's worth, but he's a millionaire. But most of his most of his money is probably coming from his wife. And you're like, well, who's he married to? Well, his wife is she was, as I recall, like a university administrator. And those people can make money, but it's like,
not millions, though.
Here's the thing. If you're the athletic director at Michigan or at like Duke University, you might make millions. You know what I mean? But just some podunk administrator. I mean, some of these people make good money, but it's like, they haven't made money in the free market economy. Bernie Sanders has made money. His entire family, they made money from sucking off the government teat, and working in academia is still government money mostly.
Yeah, well, how all these people in DC get rich is insider trading. Well, I'm sorry, if you're in Congress, it's not considered insider trading. But
you are correct. There is a rule. Members of Congress. So how me explain how this works? So if
what sent Martha Stewart to jail makes Bernie Sanders rich.
Okay, so if I recall, what happened was Martha Stewart, I don't know if she bought a stake in a company or sold a stake in a company, and I think she may have sold it. But basically, she had a stake in a company, maybe like bio firm or some whatever firm. And something wasn't going right. And at their next quarterly meeting, they're going to have to be like, hey, the elixir for toe jam, whatever vaccine isn't working. And so they announce it publicly, and their stock price drops 30%. Well, apparently about 2 weeks or a month before this happened, somebody called Martha. Somebody heard from somebody that's inside, and then it was not nefarious, but somebody overheard from somebody at a dinner party that, hey, the toe jam vaccine isn't working. So then that person was at another dinner party and either told Martha or told someone who told Martha, and she was like, really? I have stock in that toe jam company. So she sold it. Well,
so it's like, I'm out of here.
So the SEC, they track activity. And they looked at all of a sudden there was a big hit to this stock. Whether it went up or went down, I'm not sure which. But then they looked and they saw, here's a trader that, made 100, they bought or they moved 100,000 shares before this was announced. And they were like, is that normal? Did anybody else do that? Well, how did she know that? It was like, well, is she an analyst? Is she an expert on toe jam vaccines? Did she call it like you and I call the success or failure of guns? Or is she like a person who bakes croissants for a living? And they were like, hey, Martha, y'all going to have to come in and explain some shit. And then I believe she lied to them or tried to cover up some shit, and that's how they got her. Well, if you're in Congress, and let's say you're on a House subcommittee, and you're debating whether you're going to give a contract for the new destroyer to the shipyard in Mississippi, and everybody thinks the new destroyer contract is going to go to the shipyard up in New England, but you've got the information. You're talking to the Pentagon. You're talking to the Navy, and you're like, they're liking this one.
Yep.
So you go out and you're like, I'm going to buy 100,000 shares of the shipyard in Mississippi. Bam!
Yep.
A month later, it's announced, and your stock goes up. As a member of Congress, you, not as a matter of member of Congress, not only can you not be convicted of insider trading, I'm not even sure you have to pay for the stamp when you set your check in to buy the stock because of the franking privilege. And it's just like, Congress is a wreck half the time.
Oh no, it's crazy. But and I don't know if a lot of, I mean, it seems common knowledge to me, but maybe it's not to the average person. But yeah, Congress, it is totally 100% legal to insider trade. And that's how John Boehner, who was a freaking bartender before he got into Congress, is now a multimillionaire.
Dude, I'm so glad you brought up John Boehner. Have you seen the commercials? John Boehner. Okay, John Boehner. Okay.
I don't watch TV.
Okay, but they're on the radio too. John Boehner, you know,
I don't listen to the radio either, so
let me set up John Boehner. Okay, John Boehner, former Speaker of the House Republican from Ohio. He's actually from a district either you lived in or near district you lived in. So
yeah.
John Boehner, what happened was John Boehner, how he became Speaker of the House. We have to go back in time. I'll do it very quickly. The Republican Party was in trouble. They kept having people getting in trouble in the leadership in Congress and causing scandals. And it got to the point that people had to keep retiring because they were getting caught with their hands in a cookie jar. And they looked around and they were like, we got to find somebody to make fucking speaker who's a goddamn Boy Scout because everybody else is dirty as a motherfucker. John Boehner is basically a Boy Scout. He had the seniority, and they're basically like, John, guess what? You're Speaker of the House now because you're a fucking Boy Scout. So now his only vice is he plays golf. John Boehner is Republican Speaker of the House, conservative, Boy Scout, talks about his daddy was a bartender or whatever, all this other shit. Gets out of Congress. He goes into the pot business. John Boehner is pimping medical legal marijuana in the state of Ohio.
Nice.
And actually,
that's awesome.
I can't go into details. Did I tell you that we were approached by that same group of people when they were looking for investors before John Boehner came on board for the legal medical marijuana?
Actually didn't, but I would have immediately said, fuck no.
Yeah, that was just like, and it was like, the argument.
You know my whole thoughts on medical marijuana, so.
I know, but it's like, okay, no. I mean, I can see the argument why they're going to make money with this because it's changing, but it's like, you know what? I don't want to be in this business. I recommend we don't do it. And we didn't do it. And all of a sudden, John Boehner, a year later, hey, everybody.
I'm a medical pot.
And I like John Boehner. I don't dislike John Boehner.
Hey, you smoke my pot, you'll have my tan.
Do you remember when he did the do you remember when he had left Congress and he did the skit with Barack Obama at the end of Obama's presidency, and they're sitting there and he's talking about like because he battled with Obama nonstop, and then he left, and then he's sitting there and they got a camera and he's sitting next to him, and he's like, says I get up every day and I golf and I do this, I don't have to do that, and he's like he's drinking some alcohol. It's like 1:00 in the afternoon, and Obama's looking at him, and then he pulls out a cigarette. And he's talking to Obama. He's like, when you're out of office, it's going to be a lot better. And he's got a cigarette in his hand, and Obama's looking at the cigarette because Michelle doesn't like Obama to smoke. And don't you remember this? And he's holding up the cigarette. He's like, huh? You want it? You want it? I mean, that was the John Boehner that I thought was funny because everybody knows what it's really like in Washington. And to John Boehner's credit, he's not hiring hookers and porking them in hotels in Greater DC like some of these guys are.
You mean like Tiger Woods?
But he's not in Congress.
Yeah, well, whatever. He's richer than most congressmen.
Here's the thing, and everybody in Washington knows what's going on with a lot of these people because you see them in the restaurants. Oh, look, there's Congressman so-and-so. Isn't his wife back in whatever district in Oklahoma? I'm making Oklahoma up, so there's not that many congressmen in Oklahoma. So there was the Oklahoma, they're back in Florida or California. Where's the state with a lot of congressmen? California,
Yeah.
So anyway.
Well, look,
hey,
look, I mean, everyone knows that DC is slimy. Yeah, I mean, if you think everyone in DC is reputable, man, you need to stick a pin in your own fucking bubble.
I have a lot of experience with DC, obviously, over the years, and I got to be honest with you, I like DC.
Oh, I like to visit DC. DC is a great town.
I mean, I like DC in the sense that, kind of like, look, there's a lot of money in DC. There's a lot of people in DC. There's a lot of connections in DC. There's a lot of business opportunities in DC. It's an interesting place to live. It's an interesting place to visit. It's an interesting place to do business. And I've been involved in and out of DC since I was a child. DC is a great town. But DC is more than just what Fox News or CNN or MSNBC shows for an hour. There's a whole universe of DC that people don't follow. So hey, let's get back to guns because we're meandering about politics. Do you know what a U.S. Air Force M17 or M15 revolver is?
A U.S. Air Force M15 revolver.
It's a 38 special.
Is that basically just like a Model 64?
I think it is. It's a Smith & Wesson.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. So it's come out. The Air Force still have some people that are running 38 caliber revolvers. And, I think it's probably a Model 10, Model 64, or whatever they are.
So it's a Model.
The 64 would be stainless. Huh?
Did you say it's an M15 revolver? What's it called?
The military designation is M15. The Smith & Wesson designation is probably like a Model 10 or a Model
15 or something like that.
You know what? That might be it.
Isn't that like the K-38? What do they call that? The Combat Masterpiece? Isn't that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's apparently still some of these.
But whatever.
There's still some of these in service with the Air Force. Like one of the examples that they gave was they maybe like dog handlers because they can use blanks and it'll cycle the gun. They can practice with dogs.
Oh yeah,
and so to teach dogs not to freak out over with gunfire. So anyway, I guess now those people are switching to the new SIG M17/M18. Like I think that's the M18 is the smaller one. So they're switching to the smaller M18. It's a 320. And they're gonna maybe surplus these guns out. And they're 38 special revolvers, DASA, I believe. They have spur hammers, and they have Air Force markings on them. Backstrap, property of the U.S. Air Force.
Okay. That'd be an interesting piece to have.
I wonder if they're going to be like average priced or whether they're going to be like stupid priced, like CMP guns. Well, do you think these would go to CMP? Fuck, I didn't think about that.
They may not go to CMP. They could just get, sold off.
Through like government liquidators?
Government liquidators. Now, they wouldn't sell them. Government liquidators would have to sell them to like a wholesaler, like Century or AIM or something like that. They wouldn't sell them to the average person. but yeah, they don't have to go to the CMP. They can go through government liquidators, because government liquidators does sell weaponry, not to us, but yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're on the list with the proper EUC, and that's. I mean, here's the thing. Look, I'm going to make the point. If these hit the market, if these hit the collector's market in the ways that you and I normally acquire firearms, I would be interested in picking one of these up, because we really don't have a whole lot of 38 special guns.
I'll tell you what, that'd be a cool piece to have.
But if this goes through CMP, I'm not touching it.
No,
because I don't want to dick with it.
No.
What I hate about CMP is because it'll be official CMP with official CMP paperwork, and all these assholes will say this is a gold-plated gun, and they're going to want crazy money, and I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, you're right. Yeah, I mean, you're totally right. But
if you could watch this gun, if you see them hit the market, let me know.
Okay, well, let me give you an example. I sent you, I forwarded you a link to a company I get emails from, and I've bought from them, and I think you have too in the past. But they have a bunch of Smith Model 64 police trade-ins.
I got that email the same time you did.
Yeah, and and I send you these emails just as an FYI, because I mean, whatever, But like for example, they have a bunch of Model 64s. They're police trade-ins, 4-inch barrels for like $400. They have some Model 10s for $400 with 4-inch barrels, and I like 4-inch barrels on a 38. By the way,
I do too.
But my point is. Okay, these Air Force Model 15s. I mean, look, if they're going to sell them for $1,000, I'd rather have a 64 for $400. But
you know what?
If
they are Smith & Wesson Model 15s.
They probably are. If it's an M15, I'm just assuming. And isn't the Model 15? Isn't that the combat masterpiece?
You know revolvers better than I do, dude. I don't know.
And whatever. But my point is, I'm not willing to pay $1,000 for them just because it's got U.S. Air Force markings, even though that's cool markings, and there is going to be a collector factor involved there. But if I can get some police trade-ins for $400 on a Model 64, I'll take the Model 64 over the Model 15 any day of the fucking week.
Okay.
And really, there's not a whole hell. I mean, there is a difference between a 64 and a 15, but you know what I mean.
Sure, I understand.
I mean, it's like, come on, people, let's not get crazy. But if the price is right and these things get dumped on the market, I'm on board for one. As long as it's not stupid. It's like the CMP 1911s. I'd love to have one. I'd love to own it for the historical value and all that crap, but I'm not willing to pay $1,200 for a whipped up piece of shit 1911.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm going to spend $1,200 on a 1911, I can buy a lot of nice brand new in the box 1911s for $1,200.
It's true. Like a Springfield Armory Rangemaster comes to mind.
Sure, SIG 1911s. I mean, actually,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Your SIG C3 or whatever it was.
SIG C3, I think, cost me around $1,100 when I bought it.
Okay, so I just got waved in. I've got a meeting I got to go into, so we're gonna wrap this one up. But we're gonna end this one with a police blotter and a funny crime and hunting story all wrapped into one. And I heard this. Awesome. I don't know if I believed it all the way. I think maybe they kind of made this up a little bit. But here's the headline.
Okay.
Suspected rhino poacher trampled by elephant, eaten by lions in South Africa.
Oh goddamn! I heard about that, and I didn't deep dive into it. I saw the headline. And it's like whatever,
It was at
because I mean
Kruger.
it's just so fucking unbelievable. I didn't even. It's like yeah, whatever.
It's at Kruger. So let me read. Here we go. A suspected rhino poacher was trampled to death by an elephant, and then his body was ravaged by lions, according to the officials with the South African National Parks. The incident occurred Tuesday at Kruger. His identity has not been released. Let's see. Okay, here's a quote. Indications found at the scene suggested that a pride of lions had devoured the remains, leaving only a human skull and a pair of pants. A National Parks statement said. Let me see here. So apparently what happened was a group of these poachers, they go into Kruger, and one of them gets trampled by an elephant. And so what they did is they couldn't call the police. They couldn't go for help. And they didn't want to carry his body out because they're likely to get caught. So what they did is they hauled his body up to the nearest road and left it by a road so somebody could find the body. Then they got out of there and got home, and they told all their wives that, hey, we lost Ray Ray. He, Dumbo got him. And so this happened so they probably didn't get home till dawn. So the body's out there all night. So somebody, either the Park Service found the remains, or a daughter of the man was like, you left Daddy out there? So she freaks out. She contacts the Park Service. And she's like, they're telling me they left Daddy's body over in this area. So they went out and they went to go find the body, and it was too late. And all they had found was a skull and a pair of pants.
Nice.
And but here's the thing. I think I saw a photograph of the weapon that maybe these people had. And what I liked about this story, the media won't talk about this. When they talk about this, they think of like Cecil the lion, and they think of the dentist and the hunter and all that. Mm-hmm. And, these damn hunters and poachers, because they use poaching and hunting interchangeably, kind of like like stronger versus better in the firearms community. And what you could, this literally, like, it was a gun made with a pipe and a 2x4. And you're like, because what this is these are locals who are going out and shooting an animal because they're broke as shit. They're shooting an animal, and they're harvesting whatever they can off of it and then selling it. And the thing is, if you had hunters coming in, paying tag fees, paying for camp, paying for guide services, paying for food, paying for valet services, paying for scouting, that creates an ecosystem. One animal pays for all of this. Like they were saying, I think this article, between 2005 and 2017, 2,000 elephants and 6,300 rhinos have been killed by poachers in South Africa and Kenya.
Damn. Wow, really?
I mean, if that was animal fees, first of all, they manage game. They wouldn't let you can't take that many unless they're trying to, like, there's too many. I mean, that would be, oh my God, that would be hundreds of millions of dollars.
Oh, geez, yeah.
I mean, maybe $1 billion. I mean, I don't know how much money that would be. I mean, it would take decades and decades to tag and fill that shit. And it's just an example of, it's all virtue signaling by the rest of Western media, evil poachers and rhinos, and I'm glad they got what they deserved. And it's like, well, assholes, the thing is, because the locals are broke and they don't have jobs, you can't keep their asses out of the park when they live right next door to the park. But if you could incentivize them economically to protect the animals so they can have jobs, they don't give a fuck. And when you ban hunting in these places, a lot of times what happens is the very people that are working with the hunting and managing these herds, if you ban the hunting, they turn into poachers because they can't make money unless they're poaching now.
Yeah, but
Nope.
here's the thing. Everyone that listens to our podcast understands this. It's the people that don't listen to our podcast that have no fucking clue what you're talking about.
Absolutely. All right. Well,
Yeah.
that wraps up episode 129 of the John 1911 podcast. If you want to see any pictures or links to stories of things that we've discussed, go to our website, john1911.com. It'll be in the comments section. That's at john1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and having fun. Everybody, have a good day.
See you later.